without further ado, more people. See, Margarita, you're so popular. People are coming in. All right, I'm going to do the introduction for Margarita Mavromichalis. I pronounced it right. Yay. Okay, good. So she comes from a family of Greek diplomats and has spent her whole life traveling all over the world. She speaks 5 languages, which is pretty impressive. I can barely speak English that well, so totally impressed by you. And she thinks photography as her second language, which I actually loved. I loved that about that you wrote that in your bio. Thought that was beautiful. She moved to New York in 2009 to continue her studies through ICP. And in 2014, she moved back to Greece, where she devoted most of her life to covering the refugee crisis as it developed on the island of Lesbos. It says that Margarita is mostly attracted to street photography and the elements that evoke emotions and surprise in everyday life. She's passionate about documenting current events that she feels strongly about and highlighting their social impact. Her work has been displayed all over the world, New York, Boston, San Diego, the Museum of the City of New York. The list goes on. So without further ado, Margarita, can't wait to see your presentation. Take it away.
Hello, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be with you. Anytime we photographers or artists get, the chance to present our work and share our vision, I see it as a gift. So thank you to the Los Angeles Center of Photography for inviting me and for organizing such a great week and events. As Janice said, I do come from a family of diplomats and have traveled since birth. I've never lived for more than 3 or 4 years anywhere. So like Eleonore, who had her presentation earlier this week, I've had a nomadic journey that still goes on. Yes, I do speak 5 languages, and for me, photography is one of the most important ones because I feel that images speak louder than words. And it's a language, it's a universal language that everyone understands, and it gets the messages through loud and clear. Photography came into my life very early on. I was young when I've had my first camera. My father was an avid photographer, and he always enjoyed carrying his camera around everywhere we went. So I grew up with someone who taught me to love photography and love taking images. But I think we have a very different vision, my father and I. When I was a teenager, I had my own darkroom at home, so I spent endless hours playing around with, developing and prints and all that magic moment that come up in the darkroom. Fast forward to 2009, I moved to New York. The city that offers everything to everyone, and I thought that was the time that I should devote to go back to my passion, which was photography. And I took a few classes, and among which Harvey Stein's class, and I think Harvey is going to be teaching at the Los Angeles Center of Photography in the fall. And he's an incredible teacher, and I think anyone who gets the chance to take some of his classes, you shouldn't miss them, because he's very generous and shares so much information and has really shaped the photographer that I am today. So I'm very grateful to him. Throughout my first classes and very early on, I was always drawn, to people and people of all walks of life. and I always enjoyed including them in my frames. So that led me to explore portraiture, documentary work. As Janice said, I documented the refugee crisis on the island of Lesbos, since it was really happening at my doorstep. I thought that it was very important to see what's going on and try to share these images with the people who were willing to look at them. And of course, street photography. I think that street photography is one of the most challenging genres of photography, because you have no control over the street. The street is your stage. Things happen very quickly, things change very quickly, and you have to tune your eye and you have to be ready to adjust and react when things happen around you. So these are mainly what I love to photograph. I like to call myself a photographer more than a street photographer, because I do all these things and I don't want to limit myself to one specific genre, since I do love taking portraits. You can see some of them right behind me. And documentary work excites me also. And I feel that, you know, we have a duty as human beings sometimes to document what goes on around us. What else? The street gives me a thrill like nothing else. I think that when I capture an image that I really love out on the street, gets the adrenaline going, and it motivates you to go on and on and on. And I love to share my work, but first and foremost, I want to please myself. So the work that I do comes from the heart, and it needs to please me first. So if people like it and approve it, then of course it's a bonus. But if they don't, that's fine too. There will always be people who will like it, and there will always be people who will not. So for me, my general rule is I please myself, I listen to my heart, I follow what my heart tells me to, and then, you know, whatever happens, happens. So I would like to share with you today 3 different bodies of work that I have. One is street photography. The other is a body of work that I developed during the pandemic, when the world stood still and is still mainly standing still, unfortunately, a year later. Because it forced me to stay indoors. And since I couldn't go out to photograph, I decided to turn the camera around and to do a series of self-portraits, expressing what I was feeling at that time and trying to create something different. And I think that the pandemic, in that respect, has helped many people slow down and think differently, and maybe try new things and explore new avenues. So it's a difficult body of work to share, because you put yourself forward and you expose yourself in certain ways. But I think that it's a very valuable experience, and it's an experience that most photographers should try, in order also to feel what their subjects feel when they are photographed by us. And we have to learn to respect them and to give back to them. So I will share a few of those images with you. And And at the end, I will end with something a little bit more uplifting. I will share with you a body of work that I created in the UK. I lived in London from 2016 until this past October. And one of my favorite events that I loved to photograph was Ascot, the races. So it's a very fun place. It's a place where people let loose and they have fun and they place bets and they win. And most of the times they lose. And they're very expressive and they dress beautifully. And it's a magnificent place to take pictures. So I will share some of those with you. So this image was taken in Williamsburg in New York, where I enjoyed photographing the Jewish community. It took me a while to get their approval, but after a few visits, I felt comfortable and they got used to me and they were very open to my presence. This is an image that I took in India, in Varanasi. I saw the man at the back first, and as soon as I held up my camera, the man in the front lifted his hand, probably to hide from me, but he did exactly what I actually wanted him to do, and that made my picture because they actually are mirroring each other. Sometimes gestures are very strong and they help pictures. So any reaction you can get from your subjects often is very helpful. This was taken in Greece. Barcelona. Again, back to India, Varanasi, where the people bathe in the Ganges to wash away their sins. I really loved her white hair and how it flowed in the water. This was in New York as well. I saw that mural, and then I met this girl who was working in one of the stores a little bit further down, and I asked her if she would come and pose for me in front of the mural. And so I took a few pictures first, and then, you know, she was more natural, and I took this shot that I really liked. This is Cuba. Two very iconic figures. Again, India. This is in Ethiopia. Anytime you get the chance to fill your frame and create layers is a bonus. That is Varanasi again. I love to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and walk along the Ganges, where you have that window of time that lasts for about 5 or 6 minutes when the sun starts coming up and you get all sorts of beautiful colors. I think it's called the blue hour. India, again, Varanasi. I love how this is like, it's almost very psychological. You have the older girl who seems very sad and depressed, who's on the lower side of the seesaw. And you have the younger girl who seems happy, who's on the higher side of the seesaw. And I love humor in photography. So whenever I can get that, and it's not always easy, but here is this man relieving himself and all these eyes around him, which I thought was pretty funny. Again, along the Ganges in Varanasi, two women trying to help each other get in the water. This is in Greece. This is Ethiopia. Ethiopia again. Here I think I used flash. I usually don't use flash unless it's bright sunshine and the light is harsh. So I like to use flash in those circumstances in order to feel the shadows. This is Cuba. This is Greece. Again, India. This is Greece. I love how the curtain just went over her head the minute I was taking the picture. This was in Kolkata, in a school. Those three little kids that were punished by their teacher. And I thought it was really funny how the one closed her mouth, the other one the ears, and the other one the eyes, as she was lecturing them. Again, Greece. Cuba. This is Cambodia. Vietnam. India again. That was during the Kumbh Mela, which is one of the biggest religious celebrations, and millions of people attend. This is in Greece. Cuba. India. Cuba. I really loved the look on the man's face in the front. And the light was really beautiful in that room. And a little bit of humor. That's in London. The Notting Hill Parade. London again. China. London. Lots of pink in this image, even the pink, the red heart on her cheek, I think helps. Another scene in London. So you have to be ready. You have to observe your environment, see what's around and what could eventually happen. And if you're patient enough, there's always something that will happen. So I really liked this ad of a movie, and I stood around there for a while, and a few minutes later, this dad came with his children, and I got the shot that I wanted. This was in Athens. I liked how they were turning their back to the Acropolis and instead photographing the dog. India again. Play with shadows. This was in New Mexico, I believe. New Mexico again. At a car wash. New York, the subway. It's quite funny. This man is yawning. She's on her phone. She's sleeping. He's busy reading her paper. discreetly. Little flower girl in India. That's in New York. I saw this clown sitting on a bench and obviously sleeping or not, I don't know, but he wasn't moving. So I stood around there for a while. I photographed him from front, the side, the back, but I mean, it wasn't interesting enough. So I think I waited for about half an hour, and this little boy showed up, and he seemed so scared of the clown, but he got the courage and he moved closer, and he even sat there. But the look on his face is really priceless, and I think that makes the picture. This is India. Anytime I see an open door, I walk in. So I saw the open door and I called. I said, "Is anyone there?" And there you go. Someone was there. I was greeted by a goat. This was in Nepal. New York again. That's London. Again, anytime you see something strange going on, it calls for an image. This is Cuba. This is Coney Island. So I always like images that make you wonder, and make you imagine a story. In this instance, who's this woman? Why is she there? Why does she have a suitcase? Where does she come from? Is she going somewhere? I always find that it creates a much more interesting image when an image makes you ask questions and you don't get all the answers. That is Cuba. I'm always so surprised to see how inventful people are in poorer countries. This was in Lesbos at the refugee camp. This is London. Again, you have the antithesis of what is seen and what is unseen. And always what you don't see, I find, is much more interesting than what you can see. This is London. Brighton. Manchester, the UK. I saw this man walking in front of me, and I really loved this line at the back of his head. I was trying to figure out an interesting way to take a picture, and this is what I came up with. This is London, the Speaker's Corner. I love all their faces and their expressions and how lively they are. And it gives you a sense of place and time, the vote leave. It was during the Brexit years. India. India again. That was at a cattle fair. Same. This man was exercising. So I really like the fact that you have his two arms, the two shadows, and the two people standing on the right. Another moment. This again explains what I said earlier. You have to keep watching your surroundings. I saw this boy standing on his horse, and since he was standing, I knew that he was about to do something. I wasn't sure if he was going to jump or just sit on the horse, but I waited, and a few minutes later, he jumped. So you have to be able to predict, and that happens, you know, with experience. The more you shoot, the more you tune your eye to notice things around you, and then you can sort of think ahead and get shots that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. This is India again. And I love using, you know, billboards and shop windows to create images. So this was in New York. I think it was the Gap store that was under renovation. And I really liked that image. So I waited there, and not long after, this little boy came and stood there. And I think it made a good image. Then you have to be patient and you have to wait. Some people can't do that. Same here. I really love the difference in scale and size. And the way the model is looking down at her. Same here. That's New York again. And that's London. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed that. Now I'm going to show you the self-portraits that I mentioned to you earlier. So the theme is isolation. Here I used a double exposure. within the camera. I placed myself in the shower first, and then I took a second shot in the bathtub. Here I was playing with the light. I took that image on Mother's Day when my children could not come and visit. They sent me flowers. I saw the light coming through the windows, and I think it worked. This is a moment of confusion. That day there was a paper that said it's all Greek to ask Boris, and I liked that. And there was definitely a time of confusion in the UK where the government used to give a lot of mixed messages to people. So I tried to create an image around that. So again, it gives you a sense of place with the newspaper. Wanting to just fly away. Again, this is a double exposure. I used to be a ballet dancer when I was younger. So I've tried to use some of that. Feeling locked up in a cage, in a golden cage. Dreaming of the sun and of a holiday. Same here, trying to warm your heart with everything that was going on. And the toilet paper, the notorious toilet paper that everyone was rushing to get and buy. Sleepless nights. Wanting to escape, yet feeling that the house was sucking you back in. Running away from your demons. Had this big chicken in the freezer. So I wanted to take an image in the kitchen. And I really felt that I was like the kitchen, like the chicken waiting, you know, for the virus to get me. Like the chicken is waiting to be cooked. Feeling lonely and alone. This is a long exposure. It's called ghosting. When you set your camera at a very slow shutter, and the person that you want to appear as a ghost has to walk out of the frame. during the half of the time that you have your exposure set. And this was the day of Ascot. Ascot that was actually cancelled because of COVID. And I was really upset about it. And I tried to create an image with the theme of Ascot. So I used my hats and kitchen pots and always trying to insert a little bit of humor in my images. Feeling faceless and unseen. And the end of a terrible year, of a very sad year. And now on to something more pleasant. So this was on the train going to Ascot. People have a picnic before the races. Waiting for the Queen to arrive on her carriage. Impressive hats. I think someone didn't want to be there. Betting time. I shoot with a wide angle lens, a 24. So you have to realize that I'm really very, very close to them. And as you can see, some people look quite surprised. And that was towards the end of the day. They had sing-alongs. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Margarita. That was awesome. So, round of applause. For anyone, does anyone have any questions? You can actually type up now if you like, or if you feel uncomfortable, you can type them in the chat and I can read them out. Don't be shy. I think we have some people typing. I have a question. Margarita, what I really love about your work, and you did touch on this, was you inject a sense of humor into
Yes.
all of your shots. And then you also talked about being patient. How is it with this sort of sense of humor? Is it luck of the draw, or is it something that you actually wait for, or how?
I look out for it. Whenever I can. I mean, for me, humor is a very important ingredient of life, and it's hard to get it in photography. It's not easy. So whenever I can, I really, I do my best to include that in the work.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was just, I got a chuckle on many of your images, actually.
Thank you. And patience is very important too,
Yeah, I think that seems to be the big thing that from these talks this week, people have talked about patience and being brave as well as a photographer, particularly the stuff you're shooting, and you're quite, very close to your subjects as well.
I am. And you get braver as the time goes by. Initially, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. I was very shy, and I still am. Deep inside, I'm a very shy person. So it took me a while before I could really, take my courage and just get so close to the people without, getting hit by anyone.
Definitely, particularly at the Ascot races, after people have had a couple of drinks.
A few drinks. Exactly.
So we do actually have a couple of questions. Ron asks, do you have a go-to camera, one you use the most?
Yes, I do. I use the Nikon 850 with the 24 millimeter lens, and I also have the Fuji X Pro 2, but I use it a lot less. My main camera is the Nikon. It's a big camera, I realize that, and it's not really the best tool for street photography, but I've gotten so used to it, and it allows me to do a lot of the things that I want to do. So I feel very comfortable with it. I can, change my settings with my eyes closed. And because I'm a very patient person, I usually blend in with time in the scene. So even though I have a bigger camera, people don't notice me after a while.
Okay, all right. David has a question about what kind of post-processing do you do, and do you crop much within the wide angle?
Okay. You do? My only post-processing is Lightroom. Okay. So I would do anything that I would do in the darkroom. So I do basic changes like brightness and maybe a little bit the contrast, and I just adjust those things. I will never remove anything from an image or add anything. And cropping, I try to avoid cropping because I don't like to crop. But whenever I feel that my image needs to be a little bit cleaner and there's things on the edges that bother me, then yes, I will crop a little bit, but never to the extent of trying to create an image by cropping. If I feel that an image does not look right, then it's not a good image to start with. It's not by cropping it that it's going to become a better image. So I do a minimum amount of cropping if necessary.
Okay. Gail, she got quite a few questions now, which is awesome. Gail asks, tell us about your focal length that you use.
It's a 24. 24, mainly a 24. The body of work that I did in Lesbos for the refugees, I used my 24 to 70 zoom lens. Because then there I felt that I needed it, but mainly for my street work, it's 24.
Okay. Eva asks, where do you wish to photograph next?
Ooh, anywhere, just get me out of the house.
I think we're all feeling that
way. We've
way.
been in lockdown forever, and we're still in lockdown. So just anywhere.
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 Okay. Awesome. Eleanor has a question. In the first part of your presentation, you showed many images from India and other places in the world. Could you talk about the experience of photographing where you live versus photographing in a country where you are visiting specifically for that purpose?
You know, I've been to India so many times. It's a country that I visit every year. So I've grown to feel very comfortable there. And I tend to go back to the same places all the time. So people recognize me now and they know that I'm coming. And I always bring them back prints and they always appreciate it. So I have created a relationship with many people there, many locals. And this really makes my life much easier because I feel comfortable and they also help me, you know, to create better work because they introduce me to more people and people don't react to me anymore. And to me, every single trip is an educational experience because it's a part of the world that is so different to our own reality. It makes me feel very humble and it makes me respect, you know, those people so much more because they live through hardship, most of them. So, and I get to appreciate every single thing that I have. So, in general, it has always been a very valuable experience, and I always come back, you know, feeling that I've become a better person almost.
Excellent. Meryl has a question. You have a great sense of performance in your photos. I totally agree. And especially in your self-portraits. Does your dance experience help with your poses and storytelling concepts?
Probably. My dance background, I don't know because it goes back so many years. I don't want to count because it will depress me. But I have to tell you that the experience of creating self-portraits is a very interesting one because you start off with one idea and it's just a tiny idea and you try to emulate that idea, and from where you start to where you finish is day and night. And you can see how this picture evolves slowly. Some of those pictures that I've shown you, it took me maybe, for one image, it took me maybe a week to create and a week working every single day at it. So, and every time you shoot and you look at your image, you see something that is wrong or you feel that it needs something more. So you keep adding or you're taking out things of the frame. So it keeps evolving, and it's a process that I find extremely interesting, and it's almost alive the way it develops. And when you look at it from where you started to where you finish, it's very impressive.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Margarita. Does anyone else have any questions, comments? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Everyone a minute or two. Well, Margarita, thank you so much on behalf of the Los Angeles Center of Photography. Thank you for that amazing presentation. We really, really appreciate your time
Thank
today.
you. Mara's here. Hi, Mara.
We still have people who are coming in. Letting everyone know we still have presentations. You can see the full Street Week in LA schedule on our website. These presentations are being recorded. This one will be posted on our YouTube channel, hopefully within 24 hours. So you can, if you want to refer back to anything that you saw today. With that, thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.